Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013 to order. If you'd all please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Retired, roll call please.
Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Trustee Trescott.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Retired is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Planner McCarthy, Manager Gerard, John Marks, ZBA Chair, and Dave Wiegand, Road Committee Chair.
Thank you.
And on the planning, and on the Recreation Committee also.
The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda is here to deal with items that typically do not require immediate board action. This evening's includes approval of the prior meeting minutes of November 19th, received committee and other reports, including the Planning Commission meeting of November 13th from Trustee Durant, the Iron Heritage Rec Authority minutes to over 23rd, the Roads Committee draft minutes of November 19th, Fire Department officers draft minutes of November 4th, Fire Department draft meeting minutes November 11th, the Water Production Report from October. Also, correspondence not requiring board action includes landfill tipping fee increase proposed, the Charter Communication correspondence regarding the quarterly franchise fee payment to Marquette Township, as well as the Charter Communication correspondence regarding pricing. Most things are going up $1, it would appear. Bills payable this evening in the amount of $88,584.78, and financial reports, including October's 2013 financial statement, as well as the October 2013 Treasurer's Report. Are there any items in the consent agenda that any board member wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none,
I'll make a motion. Second.
we have all kinds of support for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any items board member wishes to add or change on this evening's agenda?
I'd like to move up the construction update. I believe that's what Mr. Clark is here for.
Although
It's on unfinished business, so I guess it's...
we'll get to it quick. He's going to take care of it during public comment if that's agreeable to the board.
Okay, I guess we don't have to move it up then.
So what we'll do is, since we're going to deal with it during public comment, do we want to?
Actually, 9A wasn't Jim. 9A is ours.
Oh,
Okay.
Jim was just the construction update.
Okay, then we won't have to worry about it, and Jim's just going to give us a construction update during public comment.
That's fine.
If there's no other changes, motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Those members of the public wishing to address this board may do so now. First, last name, approach the podium. Thank you.
And I need to turn this on.
Please.
Test, test. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, board members. Jim Clark, Manager, Cornerstone Development Corporation. Thank you for taking the time. I'm just going to give you a quick construction update on the Public Works facility. To date, the subsurface infrastructure is completed and installed, which includes the stormwater system that comes from the site along the right-of-way down to the corner, which is subsurface catch basins and piping. That's all in. All the water and sewer new laterals are into the new foundation. The footings are completed. We actually have some structural beams going up as we speak. And vertical beams are going up, the columns are going up, and we have the roofing on site and the columns on site, so we hope to have the roof on there within the next 10 to 14 days. And once we can get that roof down, we can really make some forward progress by, eliminating the weather component from our construction site for the building. Now, obviously, the site work for the facility will wait until spring. Now, one of the things we are looking at is there was a cost item that was attributed to the infrastructure. We ran into some rock that was subsurface conditions that we didn't know about. But we're also looking at reducing some of the parking lot specifications to give a credit back to the contract. So hopefully there will be no net increase, but we're putting those pieces together for you to review and approve once we have that available. Now, there's a couple of changes that I just wanted to make you aware of, at no cost right now to the township, but we did find out in our final construction codes review that there was a passive ventilation system required for the truck bay of the building, where the overhead doors allow the trucks to come in and park for overnight. Because they're going to be emitting carbon monoxide, and we needed to have a sensor, carbon monoxide sensor in there, which is passive. It detects it, and then it turns the fan on if the levels are high enough, which is also the backup system that you have in the fire hall, the new fire hall, which is the minimum code requirement. And let's see. And that's about all of them right now. Now, I do have we could give you an outline, to the manager as far as the schedule. So if you have any questions on the schedule, we'll get that outline to Randy. So if you have any questions as far as the sequence of events or anything, just ask Randy, and I'm sure he'll be able to let you know. But once we get that weather, that roof down, and we have a little security from the weather, we can do a site visit with the board whenever you feel that you can fit it in your schedule.
And as it sits right now, as of today, we're dead on schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, foundation work went a little better than we thought, even though we ran into a little earlier winter conditions this year. Things progressed fairly well because we didn't have a lot of heavy snowfall at once, so we were able to keep up with it. Any questions you may have, I'm available to answer.
One of the things that you may see activity going on over there is because of the wetness, basically, and the disruption that we have of the surface around the facility. Ruts are going to develop, so we're occasionally going to have being in there leveling it and adding gravel. So you'll see that occurring basically over the winter.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the update.
Thank you. You need me to keep this on?
Shut it off.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and open up board member comment. Those members of the board wish to make comment may do so at this time. Clerk Tari?
Still getting some problems, and I apologize to the online and TV viewing of the township board meetings. Still working out the bugs of the system, and I think we're going to switch directions and go to a wired system. We're getting too much interference here, so hopefully by the new year we'll have the new system in place. So be patient, and just like I said, I apologize. I know I've been getting some complaints in on email, and we've been trying to address those so the board knows. So hopefully we can get that addressed and ready for next year.
Thanks, Randy. Other board member comment? Dan?
I'd like to just put a shout out to Leanne Kashmarsky, as well as the rest of the events committee. They did a great, super job for the tree lighting this tonight. I think it was well attended, and I think everybody that was there enjoyed themselves.
Great. Pete, anything?
No.
Lynn?
Yep, I have a library packet. Came in the mail yesterday. The meeting's tomorrow night. I can make it before my planning meeting. I don't want to go, but if you want me to go, I will.
I think that we are of one mind, Lynn, and I think that we've always said that we don't want people to attend committee meetings just to attend committee meetings, that the only point of doing something is if you actually are taking an action and making a difference. And after your report and further investigation into it, it sounds like if we would like to engage Peter White Public Library, really the place to do it is not in a township relations committee meeting, but to the actual board, I think we would be much better served. I think it would be great if you still wanted to be our liaison between Marquette Township and Peter White Public Library, but I think that having you attend those meetings is a waste of your time, and I think that would be better served for you to attend the actual regular board meeting to
I was
make
going to ask
requests.
you if you thought, maybe try that, just to listen and see what they do or do some kind of report.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll check on those dates.
I think that's probably the body that can take action. It would appear to me that the Township Relations Committee is, well, it might be a good group and a good group of folks. It probably doesn't serve our purposes as well as we would like.
I noticed on the chart that we got in our packet that Ms. Kennedy is crossed off, so she's not going to be a representative either. She was not really the alternate, but the second person, so I don't know.
I mean, if somebody would like to
We've
attend
lost
from the community, we will certainly be happy to appoint somebody to that position if they would like to go, but I don't think that it would require certainly a board member in attendance.
I'll check on the library board.
Great. Diana, anything?
Nothing at this time.
Ernie?
I just have one question, and I didn't bring it up on the consent agenda, but on increase on the tipping fees. Can Kurt put together what that projected cost is for the next coming year on that?
I did ask him on that. He indicated that it was a surprise to him. He was not aware that was going to occur. He did not take that into consideration in his rate calculations, but he didn't think that it would be significant enough to change his recommendation for a rate.
You can just provide some.
Yeah, he will do that.
The only comment I would have is that I hope everybody just completed a very safe and fruitful deer hunting season, unless of course you're still hunting with a bow or muzzle loader. Hopefully you weren't experiencing the hunter harassment that myself and members of my hunting party had from one specific conservation officer associated with the Michigan DNR. If you are, I would encourage you to file a complaint with the Michigan DNR to help this young fellow learn that perhaps spending a little bit of time in the field with an older officer who knows how to address sportsmen would be in their best interest. I also hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and with that, we'll close board member comment. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2014 budget. At this time, I would like to open that public hearing for public comment for both the fiscal year 2014 budget as well as the fiscal year 2014 truth and taxation. And those members of the public wishing to comment may do so at this time. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And those will be addressed under new business following later in the agenda. There is no forum discussion. We're going to move to agenda item number 9A, the Township Facilities Construction Update. Manager Gerard.
This is a result of a request at the last meeting, and we had informed the board that we would, at the completion of the first two phases of the construction project, put together the total cost. Which you have before you is the breakout for the Township Hall Community Center and for the Fire Department Hall for all costs that have been incurred, including any of the furnishings, fixtures beyond construction. So this is the total package for both buildings.
Are there any board member questions based on the expenditures that you got? And this was, I'm hoping, answers the questions. We had several requests from different board members about it.
Now, this is through November 26th. This is as of November 26th, and there may still, as you know, there is still a couple of minor items that haven't cleared through yet, that may not clear till the end of the year, but nothing significant. There's nothing out there that should be a surprise. The only piece that is remaining, and we're still waiting for a quotation on that, and that is for the privacy fence out here. And then in the spring, we'll be adding the patio, but those will be separate items that will come to you separately.
Okay. Ernie?
Just a question. I had asked early fall, and we were talking about where to store some equipment here, and we we're talking about building a some kind of a shed out there. Is that still feasible, or?
Yes, well, we have the shed. It's the one that we currently have behind the old hall. That will be moved, it'll be painted to match, and will be moved over here, but that won't be until we get the privacy fence done. Basically, the privacy fence is going to go off the far exit door, the north exit door of the community room will open onto a patio, and we'll be doing that in the spring. We'll take the sod up and put a patio out there. There'll be a privacy fence, either 6-foot or 8-foot fence that will go along the top edge of our lot, and then we'll go out to where the current trash facility is, and that's where that shed will be placed, behind the fence.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ernie.
Going through, looking through this, and at the end, is the totals for both of them, but below that says, one says 44%, the other says 56%. Can you tell me what that means?
That's of the total, the total for both buildings. The 44% of the total cost comprises the Township Hall and the Community Center, and 56% for the fire department.
Okay. I was trying to relate each one of them back to the separate buildings.
No, it's just total cost.
Any other questions from board? Dan, go ahead.
What was the total is, excuse me, this 48 something, 4.8 million, is this the total loan, or was there more for the loan that we didn't use, or?
What are we looking at?
Well, between the totals of the two buildings, the loan we took out.
Oh, yeah, there's
2.7.
still remains from the loan about $74,000 that we have not drawn as yet, and that will be drawn to cover patio and the privacy fence. It won't be that much. The privacy fence is going to be probably neighborhood of about $7,000, and the patio will probably be about the same.
Other questions? Seeing none, we will move on. To the next item on our agenda, which is 10A, consider the committee appointments. I know we talked about this last time. We tried to get the word out. We do know that we are replacing two planning commissioners. Two longtime commissioners are stepping down, Judy Boyle and Mike Springer. Both brought unique perspectives to the planning commission. Judy, with her wealth of knowledge about the township and our zoning and things that have occurred throughout the years, has been fantastic, and she's been such an integral part of the planning commission. And Mike Springer, who brings an incredible enthusiasm for all things outdoors, and not that he doesn't focus on the rest of the business at hand in the planning commission, but he has a great perspective. And it is a big loss and some really big shoes for anybody who's wishing to step into those roles to fill. We also have a vacancy on the DDA. The three expiring terms in the rec committee all agreed to remain, and the two that were expiring from the ZBA have also confirmed their desire to remain in those committees. So I think at this point, as well as Beautification Committee, Peggy Loy, and while it wasn't really active last year, Beautification Committee with the new facilities are going to require a tremendous amount of work to keep things going, along with our efforts that we had before. We're hoping that more additional people will step forward for that Beautification Committee and start to work with us on the community garden, and as well as just regular plantings of flowers and things. We did have two applicants for the Planning Commission. Actually, three. We had a late applicant come in. At this time, I can tell you that I am prepared to put forward as a appointment recommendation Dave Wiegand, who you're all very familiar with. Dave has not only been a longtime resident of Marquette Township, but a very active and supportive person in the rec committee, the roads committee, as well as just about anything else that we need to get done around here, whether it's building ball field dugouts, putting up a sign, you name it, and Dave has been involved. He has given us his interest in the Planning Commission, and I think, as I said, there's some pretty big shoes to fill, and I did warn Dave, but I would put Dave Wiegand's name forward as for board's consideration for the expiring, one of the expiring Planning Commission seats. The other one I would prefer, since I haven't had the opportunity to talk to both individuals who have applied, I would prefer to delay that appointment until the next meeting.
You want a motion?
I would love one.
I'd like to make a motion for Dave Wiggins to be on the Planning Commission.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Board member comment. Ernie?
I know Dave, he's been involved with a lot of things, but he's also on 4 other committees and at this point in time. And we have in the past have tried to spread this out amongst, all the way across the board to everybody in that. So granted, we don't have a lot of individuals stepping forward, but I think we need to get more broader and more people involved in it all the way down the line in that. I have nothing wrong with Dave, but it's just that people start saying you got one person on 4, 5, 6 different committees, same person that, and it gets to look kind of bad that we're just pigeonholing this one individual in that. So we need to be very cognizant of that picture that we're putting out there in that too. So I know it's difficult when you don't have anyone step forward. It's another problem in that, but that's one of my concerns in that we need to be broader and try and get more people involved.
I appreciate your concerns, Ernie, and what I would say is that the Planning Commission always has a representative on the Rec Committee, just like Mike Springer was before. I believe that Dave on the Planning Commission would then become the Planning Commission representative to the Rec Committee, which would, he would be on those committees. The Zoning Board of Appeals only meets at specific times of the year, this spring, July, and December. Board of Review that we talked about earlier, and then the Zoning Board of Appeals, meets when as needed. And this year was, I don't know how many times you've met this year, John, but 5 times this year, perhaps.
Yeah, but how many people from the Planning Commission are you going to have on the zoning board of appeals?
Well, that would make it would change clearly if that were to move forward, if he's to move forward on the Planning Commission.
Did somebody resign?
From the ZBA?
Yes.
No, but if both Steve Pelto and Dave Wiegand, who Steve is also a Planning Commission representative, desired to remain on the ZBA, then we would have to, only one of them could be appointed, and we would have to replace a member. But I understand where Ernie's coming from, but I think that, again, I agree. It'd be nice if we had 50 applicants wanting to be on the Planning Commission, but we don't. We have 3.
I know, just trying to get as many people on, different people on as many different committees as possible. Get a broader representation all the way across. When you don't have it, you gotta go with what you got.
Pete?
Your concerns were discussed with David. How I felt about the same one, and he's willing to do it. We got good results out of Dave. He's always done 101%, and if he's willing to do it, he can shuffle his personal life around his committees. I say go for it.
I have no problem, I'm just trying to bring out the picture on the township to let people know what's going on. That's it.
Dan?
I gotta agree with Ernie, because I have no problem with Dave being on either, but we are pushing to get more people involved in government, and I think if we do have 2 other applicants, and like you say, you haven't met with them, and I would suggest that we forego the vote tonight until you at least talk to these other 2 representatives and see where they stand. I don't want to see people not volunteer for committees just simply because the idea out there that we're handpicking. Like I said, and again, I don't have a problem with Dave either. I'm just trying to say that to get more people involved in government
Okay.
is something to me that's needed.
Anyone else? Lynn?
If I can, without coughing. One of the last committees that Dave was involved with, there was one other person too who was vying for that position. Excuse me. And I interviewed both, and Dave was obviously the better candidate, and he has contributed above and beyond what this township has asked him to do, I thought. But I was encouraged that we have a business person who's willing to step forward, who's never been involved, even though she's not a township resident. And I didn't realize we could do that out of the area until I got the information in the packet tonight. But I would also like to take time to interview Mr. Johnson. I did make one call, the line was busy, I never did get back to him again. But I would agree, I'd like to forestall the vote until we've had a chance to talk to all the people.
Of the 3 applicants that we have now, I can tell you now that it won't change who I put forward to the board with Dave. If you forestall it, I'll still put Dave forward the next meeting, just so that the board understands. I do
good
believe
time.
Dave is probably the best candidate that we have right now of the 3. Anyone else? Diana? Well, we have a motion and a second. Support the motion for Dave Wiegand for appointment to the Planning Commission. Again, I put Dave forward because of what he means to this township and what he's done. I think he would be an excellent member of the Planning Commission. Certainly everybody sitting here is well aware of Dave's contributions to this township. I understand Ernie's concerns, and I'm sure that Dave would be willing to step down if we can find some more viable candidates on some of the other committees. Unfortunately, we just don't have that many people, like many small communities. We don't have that many people who are willing to step forth and make a contribution, which is why we have many people who wear several hats throughout township governance. And when you have somebody who has the time, the interest, the drive, desire, and expertise, sometimes you go with who you got. Not that he isn't the most, an excellent and qualified candidate. We do have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, the motion is to approve Dave Wiegand for Planning Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
Did you get it?
Motion fails.
Okay. Sorry, Dave. Oh, it doesn't change. I'll put you forward next meeting as well. And the one after that, and the one after that.
I think the biggest thing is talking to the other 2 individuals, getting more back than that.
Is that a forestry?
Yeah.
I thought you. Who would know? Danny? Lynn? Ernie?
Danny, Lynn, Ernie, Diana was a no vote as well, right, Diana? In light of that, there isn't anyone else other than Peggy Loy on the Beautification Committee. Is the only applicant we have, and she has asked to move forward with her committee appointment. Would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make the motion for Peggy Lloyd.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Support.
We have motion and support for Peggy Loy for the Beautification Committee. Board member comment. Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Peggy, for agreeing to step up. And we'll hold off on the Zoning Board of Appeals until the next meeting as well.
On the zoning board of appeal, is that position that the planning commission picks as who their representative will be, or is it us?
The makeup of the
Go ahead, John.
Turn that mic
Turn the mic
on.
on now. Let's turn hers off.
The makeup of the zoning board of appeals is as follows. A member of the planning commission, from amongst their members, they appoint somebody to represent them at the zoning board of appeals. The remaining 4 members, the appointment of the township board. So that's the confusion that needs to be resolved, I think, before you make an appointment even to the planning commission, because you need to find out what's going on there, because the board doesn't appoint the planning commission member to the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
And I understand, it just needs to be thrashed out. We have some other problems at the zoning board of appeals, and while we don't meet often with what's going on in the township, we could meet very frequently to resolve problems, because then the kind of construction that is contemplated for the township is not always going to be covered by the zoning, your ordinance. In fact, frequently it will not be, as you get into talking about a $90 million project, let's say. There's going to be things that are going to be unique and not in the ordinance, and it's going to call for more membership involvement of the zoning board of appeals. And we need to be aware of the makeup of the zoning board of appeals. There's 5 members. It is very important that we have 5 members who are free of any other obligation or conflict of interest.
Thanks, John. Which is why we won't do anything with the zoning board of appeals appointments on the expiring terms until we have the planning commission situation fulfilled.
Dennis?
Yep.
Can Mike stay on the board of the committee, of the rec committee? I don't know how many members that can have, or if there is a limit,
Yes, he can stay.
because he was on as the rep.
Right.
planning commission rep.
Right. Dave?
Just clarification, Mike had requested to remain on both the road committee and the rec committee after his resignation from the planning commission.
Right. And so what happens is it changes. Instead of being a planning commission rep, he has to be a member at large, from those committees. So it will depend upon the makeup of what happens with the planning commission before we can finalize any of that. So that'll, if there's nothing else, we're going to close committee appointments. You'll see it again on the next agenda. Also, I'd just like to remind those folks who are watching at home that we still have many fine volunteer opportunities for you to become a active part of township governance, and we would encourage you to fill out a application for appointment, and if you can get it done before the next couple weeks would be great. The next time we meet on December 17th, we'll be prepared hopefully to make some appointments to fill vacant positions. Thank you.
We will renew our advertising tomorrow.
Okay.
Just one question on that the senior citizen thing. I never did figure out exactly what's all involved there, if it's really something that we need to be concerned with.
I'm not even sure if it's still active. I know the last information I saw from the city of Marquette indicated that they were dissolving that committee. That was the last.
So maybe a position that's eliminated. The next item on our agenda is 10B, consider Regional Rec Authority Ad Hoc Committee Extension Request. In your packets, you had a transmittal from Planner McCarthy, as you're well aware, one of the representatives to this committee. It would appear that during the 18 months that we gave them to get this done, they have met and moved along considerably, but now it has come down to the wire, and the 18-month timeline would appear that just an extension of 60 days would allow them to finalize their report. And if Jason, if you want to add anything, if you come up to the podium, or if you feel...
I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. But I would, you had the opportunity to look at the information and read through it. It's just a 60-day extension to complete the feasibility report. I believe that's probably something we should do. Board member comment? Dan?
Oh, I'd make the motion that we give a 60-day extension.
Support.
We have motion and support. Any other comment or questions for Jason? Seeing none, we have motion and support to grant the 60-day extension for the Regional Recreation Authority Ad Hoc Committee before the final report comes in. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Next item on your agenda is 10C, consider road repair and maintenance recommendation. In your packets, you did receive a transmittal that at request of the road committee, and clearly what they're asking for is some very clear direction on what the township board intends to do, and if they're going to continue to meet and consider repairs, how far are we willing to push it. And clearly what they're asking for from recommendation 1 to recommendation 2 is to really provide them with direction. And one of the things we talked about as we were putting our committees together is how important it is that we have committees that we've provided very clear direction to, that they feel comfortable in where they're at. And I think that what you're seeing here is a request that certainly would go a long way towards where we just need to make that recommendation. I know that Jason McCarthy does have a PowerPoint presentation, and I will turn it over to you, Jason.
Just real short, and good evening. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Since the beginning of 2013, the road committee's kind of taken it upon themselves to, along with my assistants, both supportively and technical-wise, to conduct what I'm used to doing, which is a more scientific-based approach to asset management. Looking at specifically the roads in Trowbridge, so section 16, and in order to determine how to fix the roads, or at least to formulate a plan to do so, following recommendation was presented in your packet was a list of details of road improvements to be considered, as well as the level of construction and estimated associated costs. The committee has taken into consideration the following list of criteria regarding their findings. So a lot of times what you do is you use Pacer road ratings, which is a way to show you the, can you get the PowerPoint up there, Randy? Or?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Here we go.
So typically, the initial base level marker is your Pacer road rating, which is a rating of your road conditions, surface conditions. We received an update from the County Road Commission on our local roads this year, 2013. But we wanted to detail that further, so we took into consideration emergency service routes. We took into consideration bus routes, complete streets recommended routes, north-south, east-west connections, north-south connectors and east-west through streets. And as a reminder, in case we forgot, the roads are one of the top priorities in the township, facing future planning endeavors, as well as the concerns of our residents. So here's a couple of the 2011 slides from our community survey, establishing the importance for our future and where the community feels that we're at. One thing to note is that the 2010 census shows that we had a population increase of about 600 residents from 2000 for a total population of 3,905 people. The Trowbridge Park population is 2176, or 56% of the residents in Trowbridge live in Trowbridge. So let me state that again, 56% of our township residents live in Trowbridge Park, or Section 16. So when we look at starting to detail what the roads look like without actually having to get out there, but that's been done for us. So we put together this map. We call it the Trowbridge Road Makeover Planning Map. You'll see that the roads that are colored red and blue are in need of complete reconstruction. The roads that are in purple and green are roads that have recently been repaired or only need a minor kind of, well, I wouldn't say minor per se, but mill and overlay, those types of crack seal, those kinds of maintenance improvements. So, and forgive me, I'm a little bit tired tonight. I was up with my dog all night last night because he's sick, so I'm not as sharp as I could be as I normally am. Essentially, what we wanted to do is present the board with a kind of more of a scientific breakdown of how we go about fixing roads. And I know that the numbers that you're going to see or that you have seen are, they're staggering. But what asset management does, same as it does with utilities, is it allows you to make not necessarily a worst to first repair of everything, but more of a, you can extend your money further by doing certain repairs to certain roads and taking, a different approach to repairs. Now, Trowbridge needs a lot of work, and I think what the rec committee or the road committee is getting at is that we need to start taking some aggressive action to address the issue. We've completed the township facilities, which is a huge project that the township board should be proud of. And now I think we have the ability to then go after, with the assistance of the Marquette County Road Commission, perhaps some grant money and maybe some other creative funding. We currently enjoy the road millage. That's been successful and supported by the voters, and there may be a chance to perhaps extend that and find some pointed targets out there. But we wanted to take the approach from not just the PASER ratings, but to really curtail that data into something that was more of a roadmap to fix things. So Dave is going to come up as the chair of the road committee and explain the matrix that you found in your packets a little further in detail.
Thanks. What we did was, if you're looking at the spreadsheet that's in front of you, the road committee road assessment matrix, you'll see a number of separate columns there. The original PASER rating did not include the complete streets, bus routes, emergency routes, the through streets, did not include those columns, and we thought it was necessary to add those in to come up with a recommended order of repair, because those are items that are fairly significant and important to the residents as far as why we're fixing streets and what order we should fix them in. And what we did is we took the original PASER rating, which is on the far left hand of all the numbers, and we adjusted that down based on how many of these other criteria were entered into the mix. And if you look at the first one there is West Fair Avenue between Vanderbilt and Cox, just for example. And you may ask, why is it a -1? It's a -1 because in the PASER rating system, 1 is the worst and 10 is the best. So if you want to rate it as needing more immediate attention, you have to lower the number artificially. So that's what we did, is we lowered the number artificially. So we did a study of all the roads, and each one of them that met one of these criteria, we gave it a -1. And then at the end, where you see the adjusted rating, that is simply the numbers that were applied to it, subtracted from the original PASER rating, and it came up with a number that we could sort the order of repair. And that's why that put it up in that particular road up in the top, because it come out to a -2. That has nothing to do with the column that is a suggested fixed column. That suggested fixed column is still based on the original Paisley rating. So anything there that says reconstruction, it was based on the 2 or 3 evaluation from the original Paisley rating. Again, all we've done is recommended an order of repair, and as we went through this, it became apparent that we were missing a lot of key roads, Vandenboom, between Brookton and Grove Street, to name one, Forestville Road, to name another one. There's a lot of roads out there that didn't fall within the defined area that needs so much attention. And we got the Paisley ratings, and there's estimates for repair, and a couple things found rather interesting, in that 52% of the roads in Trowbridge are earmarked for reconstruction. And there was another 22% that are earmarked for an overlay. So there was like 74% of the roads found within Trowbridge that need serious attention. And then we took a look at the fact that we currently, and I think this number is being generous, we currently put somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 into our roads every year. And that is mostly in the last 4 years, because we have the millage to do so. But when you look at the estimated cost of repair to all of the township, $7 million, and at $200,000 a year, if we got that generous to do that every year, it's 35 years to accomplish what they're saying needs to be accomplished this year. By the time you get 35 years out, we probably actually step back 15 years in the condition of the roads, because you fall that far behind. So it was the road committee's idea that we got to get more aggressive. It was a top priority in the 2011 survey. With the township residents, that's their biggest concern, was doing something with the roads. So the question came up is, why don't we just ask the residents what they want to do? This is what it's going to cost. This is how we can pay for it. This is the order we're going to fix it in, and this is how long it will take us to get it done. Do you want to pay for it, or do you want to let it go like it is? Because it's obviously going downhill, and it's going downhill fast. Looking at some of the numbers, I don't think it's as bad as it appears on the surface. $7 million is a lot of money. But there are ways to fund that where, while there's certainly other things that I would rather do with my tax dollars, and I would certainly not want to spend more tax dollars on, there's 100% of the residents out there would realize what's going on with the roads. Every time they stepped outside the door, they would appreciate what's going on with the roads. That's why we expanded recommendation number 1 first, to address the whole township. And I don't have all the correct numbers, I'm just ballparking some of these, but from what I can figure out, it takes about 2 mills, which would be an additional 1.15 from what we're currently at 0.85. Would take an additional 2 mills for 15 years to come up with $7 million to fix the whole township. Obviously, Trowbridge is half of that. $3.5 million are in Trowbridge. So if you want to know what it takes to accomplish recommendation number 2, it'd take the same 2 mills for 7 years. That's what it takes to fix the road. What is the road committee's recommendation is that what we're asking the board to consider is to move this to the next step. We need to expand the order of repair recommendations to include the whole township, if you chose to go with recommendation number 1. We need to get the manager involved in coming up with some funding options. We need to get Public Works involved to address the infrastructure repairs that would go along with those road repairs so that you can add that into the mix, and it may change the order of repair to affect those, to make sure that we're not doing something twice. And we need to put all that information together and put it out to the residents. Do you want to fix it or not? And let the chips fall where they may, I guess. I mean, we either want to fix them or we don't want to spend the money. So what we're asking is that the board would direct, and it's certainly not at this meeting, because I understand that you look at it once and think about it for a while and address it again. But the end result we're hoping for is that you would move us forward to create a new order of repair to address the type of repair that's going to be done on all the roads, when the projects are going to be completed. We thought 7 years was more than adequate to complete the entire township. You're looking at just recommendation 2 with Trowbridge. We thought 5 years were more than sufficient. The overall project costs, funding recommendations, and exactly what those costs translate to in the for each resident. They need to know, based on their taxable value, what that's going to affect them, whether it be $50,000 taxable value or $250,000 taxable value. They need to know what that's going to affect them. And then if you look for more millage as one of the funding options, that obviously has to be voted on. Well, not obviously has to be voted on, but that would certainly be, I would think, the board's decision to have that voted on. That would be something that they would elect to do. If you elect to see if there's some other funding options, if you come up with something besides millage, some way to fund that, it's the committee's recommendation that you still put a complete survey to every resident in the township and give them an opportunity to weigh in on this and hold a couple public meetings and make sure that the majority of the residents are on board with this before you proceed. And I think there should be, it would be the road committee's recommendation that we have some hard numbers that weigh in on this before we proceed with it, but we think it's doable. We think $7 million looks like a lot of money, but when you spread it out long enough and you look at some of the funding options, I don't think it's that bad, considering what you get for your dollar. So that's our recommendation. If we can answer any questions, if I can answer any questions, I would come up with the numbers.
Clerk Terry?
Dave, you're going to have 2 elections in 2014, so, and I think we have to, if we are going to pursue this in a millage, we're going to have to get that language done probably by, I think by May for the August election and August for the November election. So we have realistically till May to figure something out if you want to move forward with this.
And what we had roughly calculated is if the board took action on this at the second meeting this month, the data that needs to be gathered and the funding options that need to be explored can certainly be done in 2 or 3 months. And it can come back as a complete package. And I think it's going to take a good 60 days to put information out to the public so they know exactly what you're talking about. It needs to be in plain language. There needs to be no ambiguity in there at all. They need to know exactly what you're talking about when you start talking about funding that. But I think that gives you enough time to get it on the ballot language for May, for even an August election.
Yeah, probably our biggest election is going to be in November. It's the midterm election. The primary will be in August, so that's usually in a midterm. That's usually our lowest turnout election, other than a school board election in a non-election year. But so I think realistically, if you wanted the majority of the residents to get in this, you'd be shooting for that November election.
And I would think that that's realistic. You're not anticipating doing anything in 2014. That's strictly a planning phase. And if it goes till the November election and it gets passed, and then you've got all winter to get the ball rolling again, so you're ready to jump into it in 2015. I think it's important that you take the time to make sure you got the planning done before you get in there and make sure that things have been addressed, like stormwater issues in Trowbridge is certainly a big issue that needs to be addressed before you start fixing roads. That's where Kirk Ray Page would weigh in on that. Those are all issues that would need to be coordinated, and that can be coordinated between now and April or May before they actually put it out to the public.
Pete?
I'm speaking on, I serve on the committee with Dave. Before that, I was arguing for better roads. If we don't do something, we will have gravel roads in Trowbridge Park. No, that's not scare tactics, it's a fact. The county, we've been after the county for a while, fixing our roads. They can't even take care of our shoulders. As our last meeting, I told people with the snow come and watch, your shoulders of the road, because, example, the last storm we had, Van Boom Street off the hill, I measured, it's 14-inch drop off the blacktop. That's where the water took it. So there are lots of things to be looked at here. And yes, it seems like a lot of money, but if you spread that out long enough, and you go by bonding, millage, or whatever it may be, we have to start thinking about that, because what we've had done in the past, Warner Street, sort of success for us, Moran Street, and Brookton Road. They're done right, except for when we have to come back, but I mean, that's what we had the money for. But we have to think long range now, and while Randy working on, that's our suggestion, is to have Randy work on funding some one way, or bonds, or millage, or whatever it may be, but you really have to take this thing serious, because you won't have any roads. It seems funny, but there is. I want to, I laughed when a guy told me about riding down the street with losing his teeth. Well, I'll probably be that person in another 5-6 years, because we won't have paved roads. They're getting that bad, and we don't have good shoulders. So I just think that we really have to take this serious and be the people that can make the difference as far as finding the funding. Randy did a good job for the fire hall and that. We got that done. And I think the roads are very important. If we wanted for this township to grow, you have to have some place for the people to live. And there's some vacant lots in the township. Well, why would you want to put a new house on the road like that? So, I mean, we could be a tax gift for us too if they build houses and there are vacant lots out there. Just take it serious, do the research, don't be so quick to jump to say a no or anything like that. But I think it's very, very important for for us to have roads in Trowbridge Park, because the county don't have the money. You go to their meetings, and he's been here, and they don't have money. Dave, we discussed a little bit tonight how they could contribute, what couldn't they contribute to shy off of the $7 million. So if they could do some of it, we could do some of the stuff, spread it out for 20, 30 years. At least you can, borrow the money to fund it, and you can get it done now. If you did the whole project, you figure you can get it done between 5 and 6 years, the whole thing. So I just think it's very, very important. Yeah, you don't like to see things like that come up, but we have to take the roads in our own hand. That's the only way you're going to have roads in the township, if we do something ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Anyone else?
We looked at some of the costs involved in it, and the committee didn't bring this to the board on a whim. We've been working on this for the better part of 2013 and trying to figure out a way to approach this. And if you look at the $7 million, and 15 to 20% of that is engineering. If you even got the county to go in for that part, it's $1.4 million off the top. But to wait for the county, we've been waiting for the county for 7 years that I know of, and we've gotten no place. And if we continue to wait for the county, we're going to be 10 years down the road, and we'll still be waiting for them.
Good point. Ernie?
We're talking about millage. That may be the way to go, but we also have a current millage out there right now. I don't remember exactly when that's going to be out.
The current millage comes off in December of 2014.
So we got to
extend that. 0.85 mils.
You won't be
We're looking at an increase in that 0.85. What I was looking at was that he increased it by 1.15, take up to 2 mils to take care of that in 15 years, roughly. I mean, obviously, that's not my area of expertise, it's Randy's.
What I'm saying is we have a millage, and all of a sudden that millage will go away, so we're replacing it with something new to do additional roads in that. Because of some residents start saying, well, I got one millage, they're gonna put another millage on top, but we have to indicate that that millage is gonna go away in December. And this is brand new for a whole new, different projects in that too.
Well, I think you gotta be very careful about how you present it.
Yes.
You gotta make sure it's a well thought out plan, because you can't just hit them with a 1.15 millage increase for roads and not have to do a lot of PR work to make sure they understand exactly what's gonna happen, and more than that, when it's gonna happen, and specifically how it's gonna affect their taxes. They don't care about the $7 million, they wanna know what's it gonna cost me this year.
Right.
And the other thing is you're looking for the whole township. Right now, we're just talking about Trowbridge. So you need to pass the whole township, so everyone knows what's going on.
Roughly a little more than half of the residents, as Jason said, a little more than half of the residents, about 56% live in Trowbridge. But you're absolutely right, that's 44% live outside of Trowbridge, and, you know, and they can carry the load, basically. So, you know, realistically, you do have a cap on the millage that you can levy. I mean, there is a maximum cap, and in addition to the maximum cap on the levy, there's a maximum cap of indebtedness that townships can take too, and that's a percentage of your budget. Now, you know, with just real quick calculations that Dave was throwing out, is he's real close. Based on current taxation, 15 years at 2 mills would generate somewhere between $6.6 and $7 million. Assuming everything stays as it is now, but as you know, we have some challenges with the tax tribunal that we hope we're going to prevail on, and that'll answer a lot of questions. We've also been experiencing, on average, over the last 15 years, about 7% a year in growth, taxable value growth. So, you know, the money is there. The question that you would have, you got a couple of questions that you would have to overcome. One is, we don't own the roads, so we'd be investing township tax money into something we don't own. Certainly you can do that in conjunction with the road commission, as Dave and the road committee are recommending. Right now, we pay 60% on any work that the road commission does on our behalf. So it's real close, 20% roughly is engineering, so, you know, the road commission in our current projects have kicked in the engineering. They've done the design work and the engineering for us. They kept our costs down. Bonding is another way to go. Sell bonds, basically, for a road project. You will have some opposition from a segment of the population. Some live in Trowbridge and some live out of Trowbridge that will take the position that it's not our responsibility. Roads are not a township issue. It falls to the road commission, and they are absolutely right. The road commission will not be able to do any of this work. They simply won't. I mean, their horizon does not look any better next year than it did this year, and in fact, most of the legislative initiatives that are going on in Lansing hurt the road commission. There is a very good possibility that in the next, within the time frame that Dave and Jason are talking about, there won't be a road commission. That it'll be distributed, just as it is to the cities, it'll be distributed to townships, and we'll basically, those of us that survive what's going on in Lansing will have to assume that responsibility, which means establishing a road department, which means acquiring equipment. I'm sure that road commission will have some for sale at that point. But, you know, there are some significant issues, and it is, if I remember right from the survey, and I haven't reviewed it recently, 3 of the top items that the residents identified had to do with roads.
Right.
Snow removal, condition of the roads, and transportation in general were at the top of the list. I don't think you'd have much of a problem passing a 2 mill package if it's very clearly, as I said, if it's very clearly defined. Remember what we did with the 4 road segments that we did, and we did with Warner Street, very clearly defining what was going to be done, how the money was going to be spent, what the benefit was going to be. So, you know, this is $7 million is a figure the road commission has told us for years it would take to fix the roads in the township, around $7 million. So I think they're spot on with their analysis.
Other questions for Dave or Jason? Lynn?
Well, and a comment. When I first got on the board, and I was involved with the committees, and we had to decide what we were, which committees we were interested in, that was one of the things that I was looking at too, was the road committee, because it was rather dormant at the time. It was only activated when something had to be done or there was a project. And that was one of the recommendations I made, and I wanted to get on that committee because I thought that it needed to be more active. on a regular basis, meeting regularly, looking at the sand, looking at the snow plowing and the lighting and everything. That's one of the things I brought up. It died. Nobody else was interested at the time. And I also mentioned a couple of meetings ago to Superintendent Kirk that I thought that the road committee should work more directly with the utility department for public works for the same reason, so that they could do work in conjunction and to help. I am prepared to make a motion to follow the recommendation number 1 of this committee, because I think it's an absolutely phenomenal idea. And I was overwhelmed with the work that you guys put into it. I think it's better than good. You know, I mean, it's very thorough, and I know there's a lot more research that needs to be done. But one other funding source, just to kind of keep in the back of your mind, is the library millage. And maybe one of the questions that we ask the public is, what's more important to you, your roads or paying for a library card? And that doesn't mean that we don't provide some kind of service for anyone who does want a card. It just means, like we've said time and time again, figuring out a different way to structure it. And if somebody wants a card, we give them a card. But, you know, it's food for thought, and it should be part of the equation, I think. So I do make the motion, we follow the committee's number 1 recommendation.
I'll support that.
We have motion and support to follow the road committee's number 1 recommendation. Other comment?
I think when we talk about Public Works being involved with it, at one of the meetings in the past, when we had, I think it was Jason, had the layout of all the streets, I mentioned about trying to do a overlay on top of that or below that of all the sewer and water. So when you look at it, you can see what's going on all the way down, and maybe a 2-dimension or 3-dimension if it can be done. So everyone knows what's in the road at that point in time. So we know where we're going.
I think the board action that was taken at the last meeting that Kirk Page is going to buy a program that...
Saw grant, yeah.
I believe that will do just exactly what we're talking about.
We can do that now.
Programming. We can, yeah, Jason's right. I mean, we can do that now with overlays on the maps, but what you passed on at the last meeting was an asset management program, basically, that identifies where and when we can expect expenditures for water and sewer. You know, so that's an overlay that goes on that as well. If you're doing road construction, you know, you may want to change your structure to, like we did out here on County Road 492 when they reconstructed it out here. I'm still living in the old place, you know, out here.
Dan?
I just want to be clear on something. If we do reconstruction, we have to include the safety strip, correct? Isn't that something that...
Yes, well, the position that the board has taken and the planning commission has taken is that anytime we do major reconstruction or major repairs on roads, we provide for pedestrian access.
If it's
More accessible.
Wherever feasible.
Wherever feasible. Then there are some places where it's simply not going to be feasible.
So that's probably gonna change your...
Actually, the complete streets routes include pedestrian ways. So we've identified, or the road committee has identified, along with other input from the planning commission and recreation committee. And I know it's kind of hard to see on that map, but there, you know, you take Fair Street all the way across to the west, Ontario, north to south. There's a couple other ones. So what you want to do is get people from their neighborhood to the thoroughfares. Those roads at such time would definitely be included in that kind of reconstruction. But it doesn't mean every road in the township is going to have, you know, a sidewalk or an extended shoulder. One of the creative things that was done in Brookton was to not put in curb and gutter per se, but to do the bit curb where you have a rolled asphalt curb to channel water. Those are the kinds of special areas that you want to look at, because if you've seen a topo map of Trowbridge recently or any time in the last 30 years, there's some challenges there. But certainly you're taking the right step, and that is It's asset management 101. You're taking not necessarily a worst to first repair job. You're doing it in phases with varying degrees of reconstruction or construction to accomplish the goal. And your money, over time, our money, will be stretched out a lot longer by taking that approach. And that's proven all over the country. My only comment in closing is that this data that has been presented to you today is very valuable data. It's not just PASER ratings, but it's taking into consideration the township's specific needs with regards to complete streets, bus routing. Certainly some of those routes you'd want to have access for pedestrians, and those things will shift and change, and so will the cost, because inflation goes up and material prices generally go up incrementally over the years. But it's great to see that you want to take a motion in that direction, and I think if we do a good PR and we show visuals, that the township residents will support it, because it, I get asked all the time why there's so many auto repair or auto parts shops in the township, and I read an article recently that the reason for that is because of the road conditions in Michigan. Now, if you're in Minnesota, they contribute a lot of money to repair roads. They have a different road structure, even though they have that northern climate, northern land latitude, freeze thaw, all that stuff. But in Michigan, there are more auto repair shops and auto parts dealers per capita, and that is largely because of our road conditions. So they see us as a hotbed up here, and we have a chance to change that. So, thanks.
Dan?
Well, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying, I've been a proponent all the time of just having one nice north-south, east-west pedestrian walkway. But what I'm saying is the fact that the board and the planning commission took that stance that anytime you do reconstruction, you're going to have, so something's going to have to happen one way or another. Either they're going to have to amend that to say, well, a major north, south, east, west, or whatever, because I remember that is in the deals. So.
Those thoroughfares that you're describing are proposed to be complete streets roads. So basically you have 4 quadrants in Trowbridge. This was a planning exercise for Trowbridge Park, but it can be completely expanded to the rest of the township. Specifically, like Dan Dave said, sorry, getting people from Brookton to Grove Street to the south trails in the township. That's a great way to connect. And the Iron Heritage Trail currently bisects that stretch too. Forestville can be a connector to the Cayman Trail network up to the north. We have little improvements that we need to make, but even Commerce now getting up to Warner, there's a stretch right there that's next to the Crest Oil gas station that we'd like to connect. That's just a simple maintenance strip. Those kinds of things are fairly minor, but really it's about repairing the roads that we have and fixing drainage.
Yeah.
That can be done much differently now than it could be when those roads were put in. There's a lot better materials out there, different sub-bases to use, not overly super expensive.
And Dan is absolutely right. The action that was taken by the planning commission, by the board, requiring those pedestrian ways with any reconstruction predates the adoption of the complete streets plan. So the planning commission needs to revisit this as well and look at their road facilities plan as well as some of the ordinances that they have to address it jointly at the same time for a complete package.
I suspect lighting would be taken into consideration for those areas that are currently deficient.
Pete?
Along with this discussion, it would be discussed with the superintendent, Kirk Page, about his projects. So we don't, when you're planning your roads, you're not going to plan a road that's going to be dug up and, for sewer and water. So you work around all that thing. So
What you're talking about is you're talking about a consolidated plan basically for the reconstruction of our transportation ways as well as all of the infrastructure that applies with it.
And then you'll see it. You can tell the people within 5-6 years your road will be done. I mean, instead of putting 50 to 100,000 every year away for so many roads, it's not going to happen. If you don't do something like this, it'll happen within 5-6 years. Yes, you'll spread it out for 20, but then that way, if you go through grants or whatever you can do, you get the funding to do it.
Our biggest issue in Trowbridge, our biggest issue with the roads is water. That's our biggest issue. Channeling of water, the control of water. Yeah, and if we're talking about reconstructing these roadways and we're talking about water and sewer, we're also talking stormwater control. So we've been putting money away for stormwater. This would be the time to address it. And it doesn't necessarily mean building collection structures or anything like that, but what it means is channeling that water to natural drain areas instead of running it on the road.
The population of 3905, and the Trowbridge is 21. Well, you look at where the other people are living, but there's a subdivision that they've been put in the last 10 years. The roads are still pretty good there, so it's not a rush thing, but we put in Cedarville, current apartments down there. They're using Center Street, they're using Vanderboom Street to get to, and they're terrible. They're just terrible. So
Well, the other thing we have to keep in mind is Cedarville is expanding. There'll be more residents in Cedarville. We've got the Up the Sky project coming with multiple layers of housing on that. We've got the Longyear property that they're looking at long-term development of that property north of Huron Woods. There are a number of areas of expansion in the township, but probably over the time frame that's being talked about here, population is going to be significantly more than 3905.
and you're talking a lot of money, but you're being spread out, and they're going to see the end result like now. You don't have to worry about, I'm going to die before I see a road down, So
Well, in my opinion, it's a wise investment for the township.
it's one of the best moves that we've had, along with the township and the fire department.
So we'll continue to move, at your pace. We can present you with the same type of map that you see with road surface conditions with utilities, and those two can then be melded together to adjust that list, yet again, based on where the utilities are at. So anytime you're going to dig up a road, you want to take a look at your utility. When was it put in? Should it be replaced? If not, okay, let's put some new sub-base down. We can cope. With the development that we have going, as Randy said, those numbers could shrink more and more based on, our long-term growth.
And we also have to blend into this discussion the other things that we have on our plate, going forward. I think potentially finish our water project. We have a number of those things out there. So we need to look at a combination of different kinds of funding sources, not to hamstring ourselves in any particular way.
Diana, weigh in. We haven't heard from you yet.
Well, I was at the road committee meeting and I'm for it. I think it's good for the township. It's what everybody wants.
If you want a really good example, take a look at Badger Street. Badger Street between Ontario and, was it Erie? Down there, in that area where...
Woodridge and Erie?
Where the road commission reconstructed Badger Street, they put rolled curbing on it, they channeled the water. That's held up fantastically in a very wet area.
I think, Randy, that what the board needs moving forward, we have a motion on the table, but if it was to pass, I think what we need moving forward is staff recommendation, which you need to have something put together from your standpoint on what their recommendations are, how you feel about it, financing, what that looks like from Department of Public Works perspective, and so it's kind of spelled out for the board as it comes back to us.
Sure, we can do that. It would entail pretty much all of the township departments, fire department as well. The
Right.
fire department would be involved in, identifying what their primary routings would be, weight requirements, the width, those kinds of things. I think we can do that if the board wants to go in this direction. One of the other things that needs to happen relatively quickly is that the residents need to be asked the question. We need to do a mini survey of some sort that has some statistical validity to it. As Jason had suggested, ask them. You've got this much millage to spend. Here are some items that we're looking at. How do you want them spent? And Lynn is absolutely right. Library millage. Nobody says the library is not important, but you have to be able to get to it. It's you need roads to get to it. So is that roughly 1 mil better spent over the next 5 or 10 years paying for every resident to have library privileges, or do we deal with those residents that really need it to acquire it and allocate some of that funding? It's $200,000 a year. It's sizable. Well, this year it was around $200,000. It's going to go up every year.
Do they have that done by the next meeting?
We'll have, I mean, we have time. It's just, like I said, when we kick this off, is that, first, I would just like to commend Dave as chairperson of the road committee, because that was so forward-thinking and well thought out, well planned, and well put together. It's the kind of information that as a board member, you're always looking for, where you just feel like, look, you know, I'm asking for some direction on how we move forward. It shows that you're chairing a committee that wants to take action and move forward and don't want to waste their time. And I think the board appreciates that. On behalf of the board, I would say thank you for the thoroughness of the report. Number one, again, and I think it just shows your personal drive as chairperson on thinking forward, looking long-term interest for the township, and we appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. If I could make one more comment about where we would go from here, assuming that we move forward, is that I would think the first 30 to 45 days would be simply the different departments that need to be involved, setting up a matrix on exactly what needs to be done and when it needs to be finished, so that you can meet an April deadline.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's why I asked Randy, because it's got to go to staff, and the board needs to see the staff recommendations. I mean, we appreciate what you did, but Randy is the one who's going to have to tie some reality into it about pursuing financing, and you know, what are all of our different options, and that's what we're going to need to see that report spelled out with those options.
But I cringe at the thought that we would put something out to the public before we have a...
Oh, not yet.
No, you know, and I think we actually, if you look at the citizen survey, that mailer, we have, you know, what's the most important thing to you? What would you be willing to spend millage on? We have some of those answers right now that we can at least base preliminary discussion on until we move forward.
I would think that the board, you know, if the board moves forward in this position, I would think by your second meeting in February, we should be able to bring something back to you as a pretty good picture of what that means structurally, what it means potentially financially, and bring something back to you to really start chewing on.
Dan?
The recommendation does say direct staff.
I would also make sure that when this does go out for a millage vote, that it would be the November election, because that's where you're going to get the majority of the people.
Highest turnout, yeah.
And it gives us a little bit more time.
That's where the library renewal is too.
Ernie?
Because we have a cap of 10 mills in the township. We have 5 in the township for operating. We have 2.5 for the fire department. 7.5. Now, if you drop, say, 2 mills, all of a sudden you're up to 9.5. You have a 0.2 for Heritage Trail.
Yeah, actually, I don't think the 2.5 assessment for the fire department counts in that 10 mills, because that's a special assessment. So
I've heard it both ways,
yeah,
so I don't know.
But, I mean, that's certainly a legal question we would have to ask. And that's why I suggested that the best way to approach this is a combination of funding sources, not necessarily all millage, because you want to keep some of that millage in the bank for major things that might come up, but bonding, I mean, certainly this is the kind of a construction project that could be bonded. Municipal bonds could be sold to help finance it. Yeah, there are a number of options in terms of paying for it.
Just looking at this, we're bumping to the top real quick.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be real quick.
There's also a maximum indebtedness
Right.
in addition to the millage cap. So that's a percentage of your general fund budget.
So we have a motion and a second on the table to move forward with recommendation number 1 of the road committee. And clearly, from the length of discussion that we had, I think we all have a pretty good idea of where it's going from here. Probably won't see a report back to us. I mean, I would like to have a preliminary report from staff sooner, but throwing out the second meeting in February, we would start to really have some planning information put together. And
We're already in December.
I know. It's not as far away as it sounds. We have a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Jason. Dave. The next item on our agenda is 10D, consider adoption of the 2014 fee schedule. Clerk Patari?
Yeah, this is actually an error in the agenda. This should actually go on to the next agenda, because once you have your public hearing, and there is no comment on it tonight, staff will then go and put everything into the fee schedule, and we will adopt this at the next meeting, so I'll make a motion to move this to the next agenda.
Support. We have motion support. Any board member comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is consider budget amendment number 2013-15. Clerk Rattari.
Present to the board, budget amendment 2013-15. We're getting down to the end of the year, so our accountant has split the budget amendments into two for final year end. So this is the first of the two. The second one will come next meeting. Highlights of this budget amendment, and it's a little bit lengthy, not too bad. Authorization is requested to increase the fund balance in the fire fund by $250,000 to include the sale of the building for $300,000, offset by lower tax revenue and loan proceeds. Projected cost of fire truck repairs is $25,000. Capital building and grounds will be reclassified to capital computer equipment and office furniture based on final billings. Stormwater fund has no activity or planned activity in 2013, thus the revenue and expenditures will be reduced to zero. Wastewater fund revenues are projected to be slightly below budget as December sales are based on September usage. Administration will be higher than budget due to vacation overage payout, customer accounts due to supply purchases, and general services for supplies and gasoline. The offset of $18,000 will come from the contingency fund. The solid waste fund will require an additional $8,000 for the waste refuse department for the projected vacation overage payout and the increase in the cost of monthly garbage collection. The offset will come from contingency. And I will make a motion to approve the budget amendment, and it will be referenced in the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Board member questions or comment? Lynn?
I'm a little confused, maybe it's just the way it's worded on the fire fund balance, 250 and 25 and 300,000. Are they're not getting credit for the 300,000, is that?
I'll get an answer to you for that. I think it's just the way Lois worded it.
Yeah, the $300,000 was transferred, that's a revenue item, but it's being reduced by some other expenditures, like the $25,000 for the truck repairs, projected cost of that. It's kind of an awkward way to phrase it, but
Anyone else? Seeing none, Clerk Rattari.
yeah.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Trustee Truscott?
Yes.
Trustee Durant?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Limata?
Yes.
Motion carries.
To answer that question specifically, if you take that $300,000 minus the $25,000, then when she's talking about the tax revenue, reduced tax revenue, remember that was the tax tribunal decision
Right.
that cut $16,000 out of the budget. So that's where she's amending it, and that's what gets down to $250 from the $300,000.
Motion passes, thank you. Next item on our agenda is the 2014 Township meeting dates. There is in your packet a proposed schedule put together by Clerk Rattari.
Actually, there's two changes. I talked to Andra, and apparently I guess I didn't get on here. I talked to the supervisor. Now with the new facility, we don't have to worry about election setup in the boardroom any longer. So I asked him what his preference was, Monday or Wednesday, for those meetings. And he suggested Monday. Now, I don't know. I'll have to ask the board. Do you suggest Monday or Wednesday? Mondays, it doesn't matter to me. Probably Mondays would be better because I'm pretty tired by Wednesday after the election. So.
And it basically impacts two dates, right?
Yeah, the August election and the November election, so.
So that's August 5th and November 3rd?
Third.
Correct.
Are those correct, or are those the ones you projected?
No, those are the Tuesdays. They didn't change, so I have to,
August 4th
Fourth
and
and
2nd.
November 2nd, yeah.
yeah. So it's up to the board's pleasure if they'd like to have the meeting on those dates on Monday or Wednesdays.
Does that mean that we get our packets a day earlier, or is that?
Well, I would assume we'd move up the timeline like we would always do. If it's coming a day early or a day later, we have those specified timelines.
Usually we try to keep the packets on election time light, so it shouldn't be difficulty getting them out a day earlier, Wednesday instead of Thursday.
Monday's fine.
Fine with me.
Second.
Change. We got a change for the road committee for January 7th to the 8th.
And Mondays, it looks like a consensus is Mondays is
Monday.
okay.
On the road committee meeting on the 5th, is that gonna have any effect? Because that will be the election, will it not?
No,
Yeah,
they meet in the conference
Boardroom.
room.
Okay.
Conference room.
Is that all right, Dave? That can work?
If I had my choice, I'd just only follow the rule of the board meeting.
Oh.
And switch to
To the
Monday.
4th?
Okay.
So that'll be August 4th for the road committee
Okay.
And November 2nd.
and November 2nd. So that'll be for the road committee, be January 8th, August 4th, and November 2nd.
Got that?
so I guess I'll make a motion that we accept the 2014 township meeting dates with the only exceptions of the township board meeting on August 4th, which is Monday, and November 2nd, which is a Monday. And the road committee meeting January 8th and August 4th and November 2nd.
Do we want to do anything with the planning commission meeting, leave it to our discretion for Christmas Eve?
Yeah, I don't think that would be good.
Kind of change ours whenever we, and it's nice for the public to know ahead of time.
I mean, we could eliminate that one at this point and allow you guys to post after, as we're adopting the schedule.
Jason, do you have any thoughts?
I'm open for whatever.
What? You got a problem with meeting Christmas Eve? Jeez.
I would say just eliminate that and let them set it if they
Yeah,
need
we
it.
usually do change ours if we feel the need to, but I don't think we need to.
I'll add to my motion elimination of the December 24th planning commission meeting.
What dates are we in the MTA? They don't interfere with this, right?
No.
No,
Okay.
28th through 31st.
Following week, yeah, okay. Okay, if there's no other changes, we have a motion. And there's a second, yes?
No second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the dates with the amendments noted. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes, thank you. The next item on our agenda is consider requested road facilities plan update. You do have in your packet dated November 26th to the Township Board from Planner McCarthy. The following, the Planning Commission has recently reviewed the road facilities plan in order to determine the relevance and/or necessity of specifying a particular route for the planned future north-south connector road in Marquette Township. Paraphrase, as you guys are aware, there's been much discussion, including with other municipalities, regarding the regional truck traffic heavy haul route for mining traffic. And that route that was identified back in 2008 has come under much conjecture on whether that wouldn't be the best route to haul as a heavy haul route through Forestville and out to 550 connecting US 41. Clearly, the master plan for 2013 and future land use map deemed the highest and best use of the property located along that route as forest preserve, which includes protection of natural, scenic, cultural, and recreational assets, as well as scenic residential with low to medium density residential development. Certainly the property owners there view that land in much the same way, forest preserve and scenic residential, for what their intents and purposes are as marketing that land. Planner McCarthy also noted that we do have utilities located at Huron Woods subdivision and would create an advantageous situation for extension of those to the property. The Planning Commission has recommended designating a residential connector route so as to mitigate confusion when future planning occurs, and so that when somebody else looks at our road facilities plan, that it will be noted as a residential connector route, which is clearly vastly different than a heavy haul truck route. And they're asking for our concurrence with their recommended amendment to the road facilities plan. What's your pleasure? Randy?
If I may make a comment just before the board members consider this. Back in 2008, when the map was amended and that map was drawn, the intent of that routing was to reduce the traffic through the corridor in our business community. It was to provide an alternate route for traffic coming from the west to get north around the business district without having to go through the corridor. As usual, a community outside of our boundaries has taken it upon themselves to try and redefine what it is that we were trying to do there by making it a truck route, which was never the intention of the Planning Commission. It was strictly a traffic reliever for the US 41 corridor, not to add more traffic to it. So that's my comment.
Thanks. Dan?
I'd make the motion to concur with the amendment.
Second.
We have a motion second. Further comment? Dan or Randy? No? Anyone else? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to concur with that amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And good night.
The next item on your agenda is the consider the fire department officer training. If this board will recall, a little over 14 months ago, I had gone through a booklet from the MTA about fire departments and gave everybody a copy, and that led to several questions about some of the things that we had in managing volunteer on-call fire departments. The offshoot of that was recommendations from this board that we institute a officers training program as recommended by the MTA. In February of this year, I sent a recap after the meeting to Manager Gerard. In fact, reviewed it with him last week. Just as a reminder that as personnel director, he was in charge to make sure that the fire officer training directive, at that time what we had directed was that there would be a training program in place, and that all of the fire department personnel who had officer status would have gone through that required training, and therefore I asked them for an update as we're coming into the end of the year. They've had basically a little over 9 months to accomplish it since the directive. And Randy?
I did put together, slightly before this meeting, a recap of where we're at. At this time, we have not met the requirements that the board had set. We've had a couple of setbacks with regard to the program. Following back in August 30th, I put a memorandum to the board. The chief and I put a memorandum establishing what our objectives were and how we were going to accomplish these items by September 30th. Following that meeting, which was on September 3rd, the meeting that the board discussed it, we did put into place an order for training materials through the training council. Actually, it was through an offshoot of the training council. And shortly thereafter, we're notified that those materials were no longer available. At that time, we started having conversation again with the Firefighter Training Council about supplemental materials and how we could continue to move forward with the project. We did work through the Escanaba office of the Michigan Firefighters Training Council. Chief Sims made contact with their their central UP coordinator, and did arrange for a preliminary program that deals with fire officer practices and, let's see what's the actual title of it. Practices and procedures, basically, and that is a precursor. We're looking at that as a precursor to the finalization of the project. We do anticipate, and I have built into my goals and objectives for 2014, as you'll see in a few minutes under item J, that we'll be targeting completion of this in the first part of 2014, targeting by the end of March to have the complete program finally designed and in place, ready to go for beginning in April, early April. So, long story short, we have not met the guidelines, the goals that supervisor and the board had set out. As yet, we are working towards that still, and I do anticipate having that completed first quarter of 2014.
Thanks, Randy. Board member questions? Seeing none, I'm disappointed that it didn't happen by the end of the year, which was our goal. And we talked about before we're going to appoint any officers that they would have gone through this training. It seemed to me that a year's time was enough time to make that happen. So I'm disappointed to see that it didn't happen. I appreciate the fact that we had a busy year with some other things going on with the facilities and whatnot, but I think it's important, and it's such a huge area of liability. If you recall from reading the book and the conversations we had after, certainly with the MTA staff, the amount of liability, it probably represents the number one potential liability for a township. And I think that while I'm very proud of the fire department that we have and with the guys that we have, I think that we're second to none when it comes to departments in this area. I just think it's one of those things that offering additional training protects us further. And I appreciate the fact that, again, that I said it was a busy year, that some of us started to move forward, but I'm looking forward to perhaps in your manager's report you can keep us updated to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that we'd like to see the program in place by March 28th with the training segment beginning April 7th. Dan?
I just want to comment on a couple of things. The biggest reason that the materials weren't available is that they are updating. And so basically they threw all the old ones out, and so the new ones won't come into play until probably January, I'm not sure. So in the interim, we did bring in a outside instructor, and actually the fire department itself decided that all members of the fire department will have the training as a mandatory one, and we did have a very good training last month on tactics and strategies for officers when they arrive on the scene for a fire. So it really, I think that's probably out of the officer training one of the most important things that that needs to be done. So we did try to cover as much as we could out of that. So in that aspect, I think we did get some very good training. Like I said, we're going to have to wait until the new curriculum comes out, the course comes out, and we're going to have to modify that curriculum also, because if we actually did the whole curriculum, we would spend quite a amount of time doing the training on it. And so we're going to modify. I think they're going to sit down and modify it to cover the most important aspects of the officers' training. So.
Great. Thanks. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move to consider the township manager's 2013 goals update. You have a transmittal from Manager Gerard in your packet dated November 20th. It's a follow-up from his July 31st update, and to provide a synopsis towards the end of the year for the board established and agreed upon goals and objectives for the calendar year of 2013. Now you've had the chance to read through it. For the benefit of those viewers at home, the established goals and objectives: number one, for the complete facilities construction. That included the Township Hall Community Center, the Fire Rescue Hall, and as well as a conversion of the former Fire and Rescue Hall to the new Public Works facility. I believe that Randy's answer here was effective, that it was a goal and objective, and I think that he worked very diligently and accomplished that goal. Secondly, by December 31st, dispose of targeted township property and physical assets to minimize external financing. His answer was the purchase agreement for existing township hall, public works garage, and 5-acre parcel has been constructed by council and accepted by the purchaser. Transfer of the ownership to occur in January for purchaser tax purposes. Survey of the remaining portion of the former Brookton Road property and establishment of market value is pending road commission completion, which has been like pulling teeth without anesthetic. But we're getting close to that one, and again, I appreciate the progress made towards that. The third was stabilize budgetary effects to revenue stream responsive to challenges by businesses and adverse determinations by the tax tribunal. I think everybody knows where we are on that. We continue to expand our efforts to mitigate those losses as much as possible. Fourth was develop, execute, and complete personnel issues identified by the board to include timely annual performance evaluation for all employees, fire department personnel manual, work with the personnel committee to complete the annual review of the policy and personnel manual. Manager's responses were that the personnel performance evaluations are up to date and will continue to be completed by anniversary date pursuant to policy. That was a big step. I'm glad to see that we've moved forward on that. Labor Council reviewed general personnel policy and procedure manual as well as the fire and rescue personnel operations manual. I think that we could have probably gotten more work done in regards to getting those along. I understand that some of the challenges were with a changing environment in Lansing impacting the availability to move forward. But hopefully after the first of the year, we'll be prepared to move that forward to the Personnel Committee. And lastly, Labor Council proposed collective bargaining agreement terms and condition revisions to be effective January 1 are being pursued through ongoing collective bargaining. So some of that information is impacted there that we can't talk about in open session anyway. Fifth, identify developmental interests or needs and pursue appropriate professional developmental opportunities. Randy's response was due to the other issues that unexpectedly arose, as in heavy truck haul routing. I did not participate in the following intended programs: the Northern Michigan Public Service Academy Stress and Time Management in August, or the PowerPoint training in September 10th. He doesn't plan to attend for 2014 to the MTA Annual Educational Conference, and I noted that he did in his proposed goals for 2014 include future appropriate professional development opportunities. Open it up for the board to comment in regards to how well they feel Randy accomplished the 5 agreed upon goals and objectives that we had laid out for 2013 before we move into the 2014s. Board, Ernie?
Number 2 is bothers me greatly because I've asked him many times about the purchase agreement and that on the existing hall and property. We have not seen it. We've had no input on it at all. And only this board can make that decision whether to go ahead or not. No one else can. And it bothers me when the purchaser has seen it and accepted it without this board ever having seen it. And that's what really bothers me at this point in time, because there can be no transfer of ownership till this board takes some action on that at this point in time. No one has the authority to do it except this board, and that's it. That's what bothers me more than anything. We haven't seen it, and I've asked for it many times in that.
Randy?
Simply stated, the board gave council and the manager authority to negotiate it. It's been negotiated. It's beyond the price range that the board established, and you will be seeing it, but not in open session.
I've asked to go in closed session to talk about it. And
Well, Mr. Treasurer, you're in the office every day. All you have to do is walk in my door to take a look at it.
that is true, but this board has to go in closed session to talk about it.
And you will. It's not finalized. It's been presented to the purchasers. We've negotiated a price. They've agreed with that price, and before it's executed, it will come back to this board for action. That won't happen until after the first of the year. But that action has to be in open session. It cannot be in closed session. It's a sale.
That I understand.
So it will not be coming to this board before it's ready to be acted on.
So there'll be no discussion at all until it comes to this board?
I just told you, all you have to do is walk through my door to look at it and read it. Any board member. But I will not bring it to this board in public session until it's ready to be acted on.
I never asked for it to come in public session. I asked for it to come in closed session to discuss it.
It cannot
to
come
review
in
it.
closed session. It's a sale of property. It must be done by statute in open session of the board.
The negotiations on that is sale of property, and that can go into closed session.
No,
That to-
Purchase of
not for a
property, not
sale.
just
For a
sale.
property.
Purchase it can, but not for a sale. A sale is public. That's why it's pending. But again, any board member who wants to see where we're at, all you have to do is walk in the office.
Other
You
comments?
can read it.
None? Pete?
I just think we got so much done this year, on a timely basis, so I think he fulfilled his mission. I just think we had a great year. I think everything went together.
No other comments? Well, I'm surprised. But Randy, it was agreed upon goals and objectives as part of your evaluation process. You were evaluated on it. There were some questions in some of the evaluations. Apparently they've been answered by your response here to the completion of your goals and objectives. I do appreciate your focus through the year on the 2013 goals and objectives. Like I said, I think there was a couple of areas. I think that those, development opportunities are important. I want you to make time to pursue them. Some things come up, and I understand, but I think it's very important for you to take the time. You need to be able to step out of the office for a day and attend some of those professional trainings that interest you. It's not only good for your professional development, but it's good for the township because of things you pick up when you come back. So I would encourage you to take time out as you move forward. But I'll speak for the board and say we do appreciate what you accomplished for 2013. The next item on our agenda is consider the township manager 2014 goals discussion. Now, I put these on here without, I don't intend to make a motion to accept his proposed goals and objectives this time. I wanted Randy to provide this board with his recommendations. We kind of did this last year where he brought forth his and said, here's where I think my hot button issues are that I need to work on. That will be on the next agenda as well. I mean, if there's, what I'd like to do is give the board the opportunity to question any of the ones that he has in here or ask him questions for clarification on anything. Come prepared to the next meeting with what your proposed 2014 goals and objectives would be for the manager, and out of all the ones that we get, we'll whittle it down to, again, 3 to 5 that are SMART goals. We want to make sure that they're achievable, that they're measurable, that we can do it in a timely fashion, and we can hold them accountable for it. I do want to open it up for the board at this point. You do have what Randy has proposed for 2014, and he thinks this are the things that he specifically wants to spell out in addition to his regular duties, things that he absolutely thinks are a hot button that we need to work on, and I'm going to open it up for the board comment at this time.
Just a quick comment, these were the ones that I saw when I put these together several weeks ago prior to the relatively minor discussion we had about road repairs at this meeting.
I understand. They may be, well, like I said, you threw these out here, and now, by the time we come back together in 2 weeks, if you want to revise yours, you can do that and submit it into the packet, as well as, whatever the board members choose as the ones that they want to move forward with.
What I looked at when I put these together were the things that, as I look forward over the next 3 to 5 years in the township, that I see as kind of really biting issues coming up that we need to be prepared for. So that was just how I approached it when I threw these together.
Okay. Any board member comment? Lynn?
I'm intrigued about 4 and 5, only because it's nothing we've really hammered out. I don't know that, I think because they would involve a lot, both of them. And I know there's been discussion about some of the property on 492 West. I don't know that I would agree with putting these on your own goals yet until we've at least hammered them out. I'm not saying they just don't need to be talked about or they're not good ideas, but
Well, the reason I put them in there is because both of those are multiple year type projects, multiple year type issues. You know, the first phase, and we have talked about it in several budget sessions and in prior budget years as well. Mainly, we have on the shelf, we have the plan, but a lot of that has to be updated now with construction costs and changes, and that's what I'm talking about there, is to get that current, basically. So if the board makes the decision to go in that direction, and if you're approached by an entity or multiple entities interested in moving that forward, you have the information ready at hand, ready to go. Because that is a real possibility. I know the current financially responsible party is very anxious to do something with a development up west on 492, which would require some of this work to be done.
are you looking at these as two separate projects, or are they kind of together?
These are two separate concepts. The number 5 is something that we've talked about probably for almost 10 years with the other entities that are involved here, about the possibility of at some point coming together in an authority to deal with the water needs of all the communities. We're in a relatively unique position where we have two sources. We are the only community in this region that have two sources of our drinking water. Everybody else has one. The city has one. They have Lake Superior. If that gets contaminated anywhere in that harbor, they don't have water. You know, their intake is just a mile offshore in the harbor. Magani Township, all they have is their well field. That's it. That's all that they have. Same thing with Ishpeming, Magani, Ishpeming Township. So we've had discussion with them. We're the only other one of those entities that has direct access to Lake Superior. And, you know, so that is a discussion that we've had going forward in terms of development, in terms of joint cooperations, and the governor's now talking about joint efforts. If you've got cities and townships combined, there may be some interest in joining. It comes right down to it. We're only 3 miles away from the Nagani well field, you know, from where our final wells are on 492. 3 miles is a simple connection, right now along right along 492. So, I mean, those are discussions we've had in the past. We've never been able to come to agreement on them because everybody's been in a different place. Magani Township had just sunk 3 wells for the casino that they were absolutely certain they were going to get. Not happening with this governor. So, you know, they're sitting there with 3 wells that they don't have control over. The tribe has control over those wells, and they have first draw on that well field. So, you know, there are some issues, and that's why I've got that in there. That I think that is something going forward for us, looking at the development that we're facing, the development that we expect along 492, potentially going west. We need to be prepared for some of that to happen and have those things on the shelf ready to activate if and when we're approached. And it's similar to what's happening with the hospital right now. You know, when that dropped on us, we didn't have a package ready, and we're kind of at a disadvantage on that now. We're not being talked to.
I'd still like to see these on an agenda.
Yep, certainly.
You know, both of them, so that we can actually hash out what direction we want to go and where we see it developing or how.
Like you say, these were just items that the supervisor asked me to put together what I thought might be
I can see
reasonable.
they'd be important.
Anything else? Dan?
Well, I just, going with what Lynn was asking, 4 and 5, I think 5 could be construed to be part of 4 since, like you said, we do have the second option of actually having our own water system off of the lake. I think one of the pluses on that also is that now gives us access for water for 550, which is probably a very important thing, since that's also an area. So I would, yeah, and I think it's a lot to be put on a plate, but I think we should be looking at also that aspect of it, rather than just stick with phase 2 for the wells. We can also look at like we said, it's pretty much an unlimited water supply there. So.
One of the benefits that we have there, where we have access to the lake, is there's no shipping there. So there's no real threat to that source that there is in the harbor.
Could we have the board put together, their top 3 to 5 each individually and submit it for the packet so that everybody has a sheet with their top 3 to 5 goals and objectives for 2014, and we'll make it all part of the packet, and each of us individually will submit those, and you'll see everybody else's, and it'll give you a chance to see what each individual on the board is thinking about, and it'll give us a chance to, to chew on it before we all show up here and start to try to put together 5 that we can all agree on with Manager Gerard. It would also give him the chance to see kind of what we're thinking of. So if we could have that submitted before the packet date, and I will send out a reminder as well. Thanks. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate the work. Next item on our agenda is the manager's report. You do have his manager's report dated November 27th. Manager Gerard?
Just a quick clarifying comment from the previous discussion we had on the purchase agreement. Understand, I'm not trying to be adversarial, but we have made a commitment to the purchasers that we'll keep it confidential until such time as we're ready to transfer the property. So that's why I say any board member who would like to take a look at the purchase agreement, I have it in my office, the draft purchase agreement as of this date. It's not very long, and certainly available for you to come in and take a look at, but I can't bring it to a board meeting and otherwise breach the confidentiality commitment that we've made with the purchaser.
And the board did provide the direction on the dollar amount that we were seeking.
Just a couple of quick comments. First one on the budget, I don't know that there's any comment necessary on that. It's just laying out where we're at. Basically, you had your public hearings tonight. There was no public involvement. So where you are now is you're in position to adopt your budget at the next board meeting. We do have it scheduled for the next board meeting. The 3 actions that would occur separately at that meeting are the adoption of the budget, the adoption of the fee schedule, and that's the reason that Clerk Rotari asked it to be moved. It was not supposed to have been on this agenda. It's actually on the next agenda. And then the adoption of the Appropriation Act and the budget resolution. Now, the adoption of the Appropriations Act includes the tax levy. So you'll recall, it's a fairly long document that's adopted, the budget resolution that has the taxes in it. US 41 Corridor Committee, I attached a copy of the last minutes. We won't be meeting again now until December 10th, which is the next scheduled meeting. At that meeting, we probably won't have those minutes until the January board meeting. Catch the Christmas Spirit occurred this evening. I wanted to put it in the packet because the packet's been out there online since Thursday, so I wanted to remind residents that it was happening tonight. It did have, I think, very good turnout. Weather was perfect. Grinch did make an appearance at Applebee's. It was pretty crowded in there. A lot of people were waiting, so it was good for Applebee's business. Did get wrapped up in yellow tape and hauled away by the sheriff's department, so it's done for the year. Fire department had, I think your crew got dispatched right from it, didn't they? Yeah. Right afterwards, we had as always, and they had the truck bring Santa Claus over. It was with a fully staffed and equipped crew ready to go in case they got dispatched. And shortly after the event, the siren sure enough did go off. Not sure what the event was, but they were there ready to respond. And I did notice that it didn't require anybody else from the department, so they were handled it appropriately. Heavy truck haul routing discussion has taken several directions. The discussion regarding what we're referring to as the Board of Light and Power route is still ongoing. There are significant challenges with that route. Some of them are tied up with the potential disposition of We Energies and its sale, along with its Ash Hall Road. There are some conflicts with neighbors to the north of Huron Woods, who are opposing that route going through any of their property. There are issues with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. There are issues with the Board of Light and Power. There are easement issues. So there are a number of issues there that may make that route not feasible. There is discussion about moving the haul route further west. basically along, coming out to US 41 along the Negaunee Township, Marquette Township border, out near where Power Sports was, a little bit west of Power Sports, between there and the railroad overpass, which is a totally different routing. Does require crossing some privately held property that I think is going to be challenging. Long and the short of it is, I believe the emphasis is going to be circling back to Forestville Road as a potential route, which we have Supervisor Leavitt and I have taken a position with the group that will not be supported by Marquette Township unless and until a regional transportation study is completed and identifies that as the ideal route. In the interim, we do have a temporary route. Everybody's talking about a temporary route. There is one that currently exists, and it is the current truck route. County Road 550 to Sugarloaf Avenue to Wright Street through the city of Marquette. That route currently exists. So the discussions are still ongoing, and like I say, it is taking several circular directions. We did put in on the packet that we do have the information access now available through BSNA software, so residents can access online property information. We do have the link listed there. It's marquetteCharter.is.bsasoftware.com. So that is in print, and if that's difficult for folks to remember, it's also on our website. So take a look at the website. Legislative update, I just, rather than to go through, because there were quite a few of them, rather than go through them all individually, I forwarded out to you the Township Insights. A couple of items in there, well, more than a couple of items, are directly impacting Marquette Township potentially. MISTIG, sodium discharge, the FOIA bill, election reform bills, all have impact on the clerk. The firefighter legislation is good, I think, for our fire department. It's good for general fire departments. Basically what it does is allows full-time firefighters, we have 2 in our case, there are other full-time firefighters in other areas, can now affiliate with neighboring fire departments. There had been some prohibitions against that in the past. MTA supported that. Let's see. Emergency management assistance grants are in there. There were a number of items that may have some positive impact on the township. Zoning Board of Appeals has not met and does not have anything scheduled currently. Let's see, any other major items? I can't think of any. Hunting season is over for the most part, so conflicts between residents and visitors using the trail system should be dramatically reduced now going forward. There isn't much pressure for muzzle loading hunting or for the late season bow hunting, so I don't think conflicts will be much of an issue there. We have been having some sightings of some fairly nasty creatures out there in the township, so exercise caution when you're out running your dogs, keep them on a leash, that kind of thing. Beyond that, I guess I don't have anything else to add, unless there are any questions.
Questions for Manager Gerard? Dan?
I just got 2 quick ones. I was just looking at the future project for the corridor, and the US 41 Lowe's and GFS entrance construct offset right turn lane for 2018.
Yeah, the MDOT is looking at configuring the corridor to better have traffic flow. And one of the things that they think will aid in the issues that we've had near the Lowe's area is to extend that taper a little bit further to provide a better ability for traffic to get off the roadway for the purpose of now being able to see better for the people coming out of the driveway.
Okay.
What's happening there is that drive is so short that the car turning is blocking the inner lane of traffic that's passing through, and people are pulling out in front and getting hit.
Okay.
So they think the longer taper will help resolve that.
But the Brickyard Road to Walmart Target, I don't understand that.
That is what they are proposing. We've been talking about traffic light at the Brickyard intersection. What the road commit or the MDOT has not been in favor of traffic lights ever. So what their proposed solution is to extend the boulevard segment, which is the segment that's out here with the medians, extend that boulevard segment past Walmart, beyond, all the way out to Brickyard basically, and actually beyond Brickyard, and use the Michigan lefts as opposed to traffic lights to control traffic. So that's their shelf project for $5.7 million. It's not something that's funded. It's not something they anticipate being funded, but it's a project that if money ever becomes available, they want to put it forward. It helps them control drainage within the corridor. They think it improves the traffic flow and is safer. We disagree with that. We think the traffic lights with left turn signals are safer. We have a philosophical difference of opinion there.
Yes, obviously, MDOT and us don't quite agree on the same things.
No.
Pete?
Randy, a question on, last night I come by from Fox down. What can we do about when we fix up the road to put lighting? Our lighting is so bad in that corridor.
There isn't any.
Exactly, exactly. There's no lighting whatsoever, but if you go anywhere else, they got lights up. You know, we just need more lighting, but it just seems they don't think that's very important. And they're talking about picking left lanes, you know, the Michigan left. Well, basically, I believe that Michigan left is not supposed to go to a through street. But we do it time and time again, we do the same thing.
It creates a hazard.
It creates a hazard. You know, when we wanted a Michigan left over on Commerce, we couldn't do that. But I think the lighting is becoming a big issue, and I don't know how to address that. And we talked about it in the road committee a while back, but I mean,
It's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
We've looked at lighting through the corridor. It's a multiple $1 million project to get lighting. Now, what
whose
Jason...
cost is that? Is that our cost
It's
or
not
their cost?
MDOT's cost, it's our cost. It's an addition to it's an enhancement to the roadway that occurs within the MDOT right-of-way, but it's not an MDOT project. So, Planner McCarthy and I have been talking about what options we might have through development, basically. You know, when we have development going on, like Best Buy and things such as that, where they're putting up their monument signs. I've asked him to look into what options we might have for mounting illumination on that, on those signs for the highway. The problem you run into with that is that they have to be done in such a way that they're not going to distract drivers or they're not going to blind drivers. And that's the difficulty with it in terms of how do you accomplish that. We're looking at the LED lighting because that's more directive lighting. You can direct it more without, it doesn't radiate sideways. It's straightforward. We're looking at that on some of those monument signs. We're looking at that for the mall and this stretch through here because it is really dark. We kind of have been watching an experiment that they're doing in several places that have solar-powered lights that they charge during the day, they discharge during the night, but we don't have enough daylight.
They're not proven to be right.
The summertime, they're fine, but it's light until 11 o'clock in the summertime, so you don't need them then. When you need them is now, when it's dark at 4 o'clock, and, they don't illuminate long enough to...
The city's looking at that for Lakeshore Boulevard, but it hasn't proven to be, the batteries aren't good enough to hold up.
Well, they don't charge enough, we don't have enough sunlight. We don't have enough sunlight here to charge them
Other
adequately
areas
to have
do.
it last. Yeah, they're using them in southern climates and western climates pretty regularly. But we just don't have enough daylight hours. So it's something we're looking at, but to run the infrastructure out there to power the lights and to put the lights in, we had an estimate back probably in 2008. We had an estimate, it was like $1.5 million for just for the lighting along the corridor, through the darkest part of the corridor here.
It just, it's something we always want to push, that we want more business and that, but we want safe.
Now, one of the options that we might have, if the MDOT ever does go forward with this shelf project, is we could do a companion project for lighting in the boulevard while they're doing it.
Right.
I mean, there could be a companion project there that we could possibly get funding for some lower level lights in the boulevard that would light the two kind of.
Yeah, that would be good.
So that's a
Something
possibility.
should be done.
Go ahead, Ernie.
Okay, I have just one question. In the paper the other day, Kurt made a presentation to the city on the wastewater plant, on the future thing. And there wasn't an awful lot in it. I'm just wondering, because we are part owner of that, if he could make some presentation to us as to what their direction is in the future.
I think he intends to at your December 17th meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically what it amounts to is it was the committee,
Yes.
the management committee, basically, made the presentation to the city because they're the contractor. The city holds the contract. But I believe he intends to make the same presentation to you guys at the meeting on the 17th. I will ask him to.
Anything else? Seeing none, to close the manager's report, move to public comment.
As you know, I don't very often say much at these meetings, but there's a couple of points I'd like to make. As you go into this new era of improving the roads, and I support the road commission or the road committee's recommendation, and I support with enthusiasm the board's support to move ahead with that. What I'd like to say, though, is that I can think of no more, as I sat and listened to that and said, what could we do to bring this on? And I can think of no more encouraging action to gain support for $1.5 million addition, to bring it up to $2 million. I can think of nothing that would be more encouraging than for the board to think about the fact that there has been for a long time and remains a compelling reason for the township to reevaluate the inequity of the present assessment levy for library service. It won't be long, and they'll be here again, because the 2-year period is coming to a close. It won't be long, and they'll be here with the same motivation they've had in the past. We're not going to change anything to satisfy the board's request. They have no intention of ever changing that $1 million. But I think that our citizens, if this board could step up to that and say this is an unfair tax. It isn't that we don't want to support the library. We've never, over 7 years of conversation about it, we've never wanted to do anything to harm the library. What we've said is your assessment to this community is unfair. That's all we've said. And we've asked them politely. I've asked them. Our board representative has asked them. And what's happened is they've treated the people who made those requests with disrespect. So I ask you to think about this. It's going to be coming up soon. I can think of no more encouraging reason for someone to support a road mill if before that happens, this board could look at the millage request for library service and say, we've tried, we won't respond, we're just not going to put it on the ballot. That's all you need to do to accomplish. And for most people, a lot of people in this community, know that, as Lynn said, they're not going to be harmed because the $1 million millage exceeds what it costs to buy a library card if you lived in Ishpeming or Negaunee or one of these other communities. So keep that all in mind. I think we're on a roll. I think everybody on this board and the township manager should be extremely proud. I've watched for almost 8 years now. They should be extremely proud for what you've accomplished. But you're on the cusp of something even greater with this road milling and this other action to eliminate an unfair tax. We'll take care of people that need library service, but we won't need to do it through another community's leadership. They won't respond to our requests. We should put the gauntlet down and say, that's it, we're not going to do it anymore. So I urge you to think about that, because if you take that action, just not putting it on the ballot, the people of this community and the business community will say, that's 1 mil that we're not going to be paying. Now, 1 mil is a lot of money to a number of people here. And then you come along with something as encouraging as improving the roads at 1.5. That's not hard to buy. So I plead with you to think about that. It's a tough one. And there'll always be the cry of the lonely little children and what they won't get. And that's bull. Because a family membership is lower than a lot of people's tax. So I applaud you for what you've done, but don't stop now. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your comments. Close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Pete?
I'm just glad that everyone survived the little Black Friday and Black Saturday and watching the TV, and they got to the point that they start tasering people and fighting it. It's just crazy. I'm so glad we live up here and we've got responsible people, and I'm glad that people had a good time shopping. Thank you. In Marquette.
Which is shopping locally.
Dan? Secretary?
Nothing.
Dan?
Nothing.
Lynn?
Just one question. Can we talk about policy governance again next year?
Sure.
Hope so.
I think we need to put it on the agenda.
Absolutely.
And just not forget it.
Policy.
Ernie?
That's not enough.
Right place. We'll close board member comment. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Support.
Motion support to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We're only 25 minutes over.
No.